Hey guys, this is IM3 Unit 3 Notes number 6, okay? Title 6, Trig Ratios. So go ahead and write down your FLT here and press play whenever you're ready. So here it says, given a right triangle, you'll be able to find the 6 trig ratios by understanding how the 6 are related. So 6 is where it's a little bit new than what you guys are used to, okay? So what we've covered previously, either with me or with a previous teacher, we've only covered 3 trig ratios, okay? So the way to remember the first 3 trig ratios, there was a phrase, okay? If you guys recall, back in the previous lesson, it was so, ka, and then toa. Not only is this just a catchy phrase, but it also tells you how each ratio is set up. For instance, sine of some angle theta is equal to opposite O over H hypotenuse. Okay? Now, you might be asking, what is sine, cosine, and tangent anyways? You guys will eventually dive into that idea. So the first step is to just understanding how to use it. But then you'll be able to understand where sine and cosine and tangent even comes from as we move forward in the semester, okay? Cosine here is the adjacent A over hypotenuse. Tangent, toa, tangent theta is equal to O over A, and in this case is opposite over hypotenuse. So, ka, toa, So, S-O-H, ka, C-A-H, and toa, T. Did I put hypotenuse? I'm crazy. Okay. Toa, adjacent. Why did you guys correct me? Just kidding. So these are just 3, but in the FLT I mentioned 6, right? So this is what you guys have to understand. So please write it in this exact same order, okay? So right below tangent, go ahead and write COT theta, okay? And right below cosine theta, write SEC theta. And right below sine, write CSC theta, okay? Now, before I show you what the ratios are, okay, first things first, what the heck do all of these mean, right? So we know that SIN is sine, okay? COS is cosine, and TAN is tangent. Okay, and again, what those words mean, you guys will be able to find out as you move forward in math, okay? So here, first let's talk about what it represents, okay? CSC is cosecant. Cosecant, okay? Cosecant. Okay, so SEC should stand for secant. And what do you guys think COT stands for, right? COT stands for cotangent. Okay, so that's how you read it. But here's what you guys have to understand. So I wrote it in this particular order because sine and cosecant are related, okay? Cosine and secant are related, and tangent and cotangent are obviously related because they sound the same, right? So how are they the same? Make sure you write this down somewhere, okay? All of these green arrows, they're related in that they are all reciprocals. Okay, think about that word reciprocals. Okay, so sidebar, just a little review. What is the reciprocal, right? So when you're dealing with reciprocals, for instance, the reciprocal of 4 over 3, the reciprocal is 3 over 4. Okay? Your numerator becomes your denominator, and your denominator becomes your numerator. You're switching places. That is what a reciprocal is, okay? So, for instance, if I had 2 over 5, the reciprocal is what? 5 over 2, okay? Here are a couple more just to make sure that you guys understand it. Negative 3 over 7, the reciprocal would just be 7 over negative 3. 1 over 4, the reciprocal of 1 over 4 is 4 over 1, which is really just 4. Okay? So, actually, let's do one more. So, the reciprocal of 8, remember, every whole number has an invisible 1 underneath. So, the reciprocal of 8 over 1 is really just 1 over 8. Okay? So, what I want you guys to notice here is that when you take the reciprocal, don't use the word opposite. Okay? What's the difference between reciprocal and opposite, right? So I'll show you right here. Opposite. Here are some examples. The opposite of 4/3 is negative 4/3. The opposite of 2/5 is negative 2/5. The opposite of negative 8 is positive 8. Okay? When you're saying the opposite, you're saying that it's the same number, but you switch the signs. When you say reciprocal, you're flipping the fraction. Okay? So here's a question that I want you to think about, and then pause, okay? And then press play whenever you're ready. When you take the reciprocal, do you change the signs? Press play when you're ready. Okay, so the question is, when you take a reciprocal, do you change your signs? And the answer is no. Take a look. Positive 4/3 ended up being positive 3/4 when you take the reciprocal. Positive 2/5 became positive 5/2. Negative 3 over 7 ended up with a 7 over negative 3, right? So negative stayed a negative. Positive stays a positive. Positive stays a positive. So when you take the reciprocal, the sign doesn't change. So just remember that, okay? So make sure you guys know the difference between the word reciprocal and the word opposite. Opposite means to switch the signs. Reciprocal means to flip the fraction, okay? So sine is the reciprocal of cosecant, and cosine is the reciprocal of secant, and tangent is the reciprocal of cotangent. So here's what happens. I'll start off over here. If sine is opposite over hypotenuse, and I know that cosecant, don't say CSC, and I know cosecant is the reciprocal of sine, then cosecant should be hypotenuse over opposite, because that is the reciprocal of sine. Okay? If cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse and secant is the reciprocal of cosine, then secant should be hypotenuse over adjacent. Go ahead and do this last one here. Press play when you're ready. If tangent is opposite over adjacent and cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent, then cotangent should be adjacent over opposite. Okay, so here are your 6 trig ratios. Okay, but make sure that you know which pairs go together. So for instance, I know that tangent easily goes with cotangent because they both sound the same. Okay, Now, this next part is really what I've seen from students. You might come up with your own way to knowing how it pairs, but here's how people normally see it. S pairs up with a C, and a C pairs up with a S. Okay, you have one of each. So, for instance, if you're thinking sine, right, the reciprocal is not going to be secant because that's S and S, so you know that it has to be cosecant. All right, so it takes some getting used to. Again, anytime you're learning something new, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge there, right? But it's actually easier than it looks. So here we go. You guys have this in front of you. I'll come back to it when we need to. So here's your example 1. Find all 6 trig ratios. Now on Delta Math, they only ask you to find one of them, but it's important that you're practicing all of them, okay? So for instance, let's start off with this picture right here. And let's call this H, J, K. All right, I'll label this 16, 63, 65. Okay, so the directions here is we want to find all 6 trig ratios. So you want to put them in order, okay? So I go sine, cosine, leave a little bit of space, tangent. And I'll put little placeholders for them, all right? And actually, let me add to this here. Find all 6 trig ratios for angle K. That'll make a little bit more sense. So instead of theta, I'll put K there. All right. And then right below this here, you're going to write down all of the reciprocals. See if you can remember it without looking back. Press play when you're ready. Well, I know tangent, the reciprocal of tangent is cotangent. And I know that the reciprocal of cosine C, that would be the other S trig function, secant of K. And sine, the reciprocal would be cosecant. And the more and more you write it out, the easier it is to remember, right? Okay, so same logic applies. So if we want to find 6 trig ratios for angle K, we put our little person right here. Okay. Go ahead and tell me what you know about each side now, okay? Press play when you're ready. So if you're standing here directly across from your little person, will be your opposite side. Always across from the right angle is your hypotenuse. And right next to you is your adjacent side. Okay? So, cool, here we go. Sine, I want you guys to go ahead and do the first 3, sine, cosine, and tangent, and press play whenever you're ready. So sine of K is O over H, so opposite 63 over hypotenuse 65. Cosine is ca A over H, so that's 16 adjacent over hypotenuse 65. Tangent is toa, toa, so opposite over adjacent, which is 63 over 16. Okay, order does matter, you guys. All right, so that's pretty easy. That's what we did last week, right? Now here, you just have to fill out the new 3 trig ratios. So cosecant, remember cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. So if sine came out to 63 over 65, then cosecant should be 65 over 63. It is that easy, okay? Fill out the other 2. Press play when you're ready. secant of k should come out to 65 over 16. And cotangent of k should be 16 over 63. And there are your 6 trig ratios. Okay, not a lot of work to be shown. You're just observing. All right, let's try another one. Here's part B. Here's your picture. And spend as much time as you need to. Let's call this A, B, C. Let's call this 5, 12, 13. Okay, I want you to go ahead and find all 6 trig ratios for angle C. Okay, press play whenever you're done or whenever you're stuck. Okay. Okay, so we know that we have to stand at angle C, so here's my little guy. Okay, then we can label our sides, knowing that our little person is up top. So directly across from this person is going to be opposite. Across from the right angle will always be the hypotenuse. And right next to you would be the adjacent side. Okay, so I know that sine of C is opposite over hypotenuse, which is 12 over 13. Cosine of C is adjacent over hypotenuse, so ca, so that'll be 5 over 13. And tangent of C would be opposite over adjacent, TOA, 12 over 5. Okay, so if you know those 3, you should know all of the other ones because they're just reciprocals. But make sure that you guys are pairing them in order. So the reciprocal of tangent is cotangent because they sound the same. That should come out to 5 over 12 because that's just a reciprocal. The reciprocal of cosine is just secant, which is going to be 13 over 5. And the reciprocal of sine is cosecant, which is 13 over 12. And really, that's it. Okay? So we're just introducing you 3 new trig ratios, but they work in a very similar fashion. Okay? So we'll do one more. And that'll be it. Here we go. Part C. Here's a new one for you guys. Let's do C, D, E. And let's call this 3, 4. Okay, so knowing this, I want you guys to find all 6 trig ratios for angle E. Okay, a little bit different, but you guys have everything you need to answer this question. Press play whenever you're done or if you need assistance. So part C is a little bit different because I didn't give you all of the information, right? I only gave you 2 sides, but this third side here was missing. But wait, this is a right triangle. You guys have 2 given sides. Isn't there a way to figure out that third side? Okay, so hopefully you guys are able to figure out that this is the Pythagorean Theorem. I'll call it PT, where a squared plus b squared equals c squared. When you're given 2 sides of a right triangle, you can always find the third one. And in this case, we're missing our hypotenuse, c. So c squared is equal to 3 squared plus 4 squared. And 3 squared is 9 plus 4 squared is 16. If I add that up, that gives me 25. And to get c by itself, to get rid of that square, the inverse is just the square root. So c comes out to 5 here. So 5, I'll just write that we found it from the Pythagorean theorem here, okay? So knowing that, sine, keep writing theta, sine of E that means our little person has to be standing right over here at angle E. So that means that 4 is really our opposite. Across the right angle will be our hypotenuse. And right next to us is our adjacent side. So sine of E is really just opposite of our hypotenuse, which is 4 over 5. Cosine of E will be adjacent over hypotenuse, so ca A over H. And let me scoot this one over here. Okay. And tangent of E would just be TOA, opposite over adjacent, which is 4/3, or 4 over 3. Okay? And again, tangent, the reciprocal of tangent is cotangent, so that should be 3 over 4. The reciprocal of cosine is secant, which is 5/3. And make sure that when you guys write trig functions, an angle follows it. Don't just write SEC and then move on, okay? The reciprocal of sine is cosecant of E, which is just 5 over 4. Okay, those are your 6. That's it. Okay. Practice delta math. Let me know if you guys have any questions.